going on, guys? Bexio back, and today we had a brand new video, this time on a Bitcoin price prediction. Did one of these last year, and it was not right, but we'll go again for 2022 and see if we can get a little bit closer, or see, what we might have fundamentals going for Bitcoin and everything moving in the right direction. But before we get into that, if you are not subscribed, make sure to smash that sub button, because we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. But let's jump into this Bitcoin stuff. So we know that the price of Bitcoin is super volatile. People are going to be throwing out massive upside, massive downside. There's charts and stuff to go up to $300,000 per Bitcoin for 2022. And there's ones that people are trying to point out for like 10K Bitcoin. So either one of those, pretty extreme. But I think that we're more going to see a break away from this 4-year cycle that used to be a blow off top into a two-year bear market, going into the next halving, and then go up to another blow off top. That was when the market was way less efficient and way just a bunch more retail investors. There wasn't institutions, countries, and companies getting involved. Now we all have all of that. We have miners going public on the stock market. We have so many things evolving with this market. So breaking away from that 4-year cycle is probably going to happen. And just to look back at the past to kind of predict the future, we see Bitcoin is the top performing asset class for the 3rd year in a row this year. And you can see Bitcoin massive gains every single year except for 2, which these are the 2 bear markets. And you see the annualized return 197%. That is ridiculous numbers. If we just do 197% from, let's call it 46,400 for the Bitcoin price, if we do 197%, that means Bitcoin will be worth $138,000 by the end of this year. If it was another 192% year, obviously that's annualized, so there's some years that are more, some years that are less. And I think we're going away from the blow off top to these red markets. So we're probably sticking around this 50 to 60% increase in price. But I think that this year is one where we could see something massive happen, with a chance for the ETF to get approved and the SEC to go after a lot of these cryptos that are pretty much securities, and scare people out of that market. And then that money has to flood back into Bitcoin and probably Ethereum, like the blue chip cryptos that you don't have to worry about the SEC going after. They've already kind of said Bitcoin and Ethereum are fine. But even looking at this chart, if you do the same calculation, if you do 46,600 for one Bitcoin right now, and just do that, we had the exact same year that we had right now, that would be Bitcoin's price at $77,628.90. And I think that would be a lot of people complaining about that, complaining about only getting to, almost 80K, and people freaking out about that. But these are probably returns we might have to get used to. And I don't think a $75,000-$80,000 Bitcoin would be something that's bad to happen at the end of 2022. That would probably be the scenario if we did not get a Bitcoin ETF. If the SEC didn't approve a Bitcoin ETF and didn't go after any other cryptos or altcoins, and just kind of stayed with what they're doing right now, that might be a reasonable kind of expectation. If we do get this Bitcoin ETF, I think the Bitcoin's price skyrockets with so many more people getting access to it. And then we could see 100-200% year, like the annualized 197. We'll probably see like 100% year, which would put Bitcoin around that 100K mark, maybe even 100 to 150,000. So I think $100 to $150,000 is a good top end kind of prediction for 2022. And then without a Bitcoin ETF, or without SEC really doing anything on these altcoins, or at least scam coins, then maybe we see another kind of 60% year, which is still good, but people will take that as a bad year, with Bitcoin only getting to 80K or something. And we're looking into the future for any asset. It is important to look at fundamentals, because that's what takes over long term. not these trading and leverage markets that might have a little bit of control short term. So we can see off this, the Bitcoin hash rate smashed new all-time highs yesterday. And you can see this is the whole Bitcoin hash rate. These are raw values, but this was its previous all-time high. This was the China ban, where China kicked out all of the miners. I'm sure we all remember that. The hash rate crashed, the price crashed, everything fell. And then we got a nice recovery, a straight move up in recovery to a new all-time high that we saw right here on the January 2nd. So the fundamentals are just showing like Bitcoin is this system that can't be displaced by one person, one entity, one power. That's the whole point of it. So China banned it. A lot of the hash rate was in China. It got kicked out. Now the hash rate is way more dispersed around the world, and the network didn't go down, didn't shut down. It continued moving along. It continued making block after block, and it just never shut down. So it did exactly what it was supposed to do, even under immense strain. So that just proved like Bitcoin is structurally sound. The fundamentals are great with Bitcoin, which would justify a higher price in it because it's just fundamentals are growing. Users are growing, the hash rate's growing, people are attracted to the network. So everything fundamentally is growing with it. Adoption continues to grow. So moving to that six-figure Bitcoin is probably way easier than a lot of people might think. And then finally, just kind of comparing Bitcoin to fiat, and the whole kind of sentiment around Bitcoin is to fix the money, fix the world. So we can see this right here. You can see this kind of green square here. That's when the fiat system begins. So when the dollar was backed by gold is before that. You can see the majority of the household wealth is held by the bottom 90%. Probably makes a lot of sense to be that way when you have something backed by a scarce type of thing of asset like gold, like the dollar backed by gold. Then you got a decent little system there. But once you take it off that, you see the top 1.1%. So not even 1%, the 0.1% are about to flip the bottom 90% of all people in household wealth. And this happens because there's no longer a reason to keep these like reasonable prices or asset prices. You can't just pump them up. And when you have backed by gold, very hard to do that. When it's backed by nothing and you can print all you want, do quantitative easing and all of these things we've seen, then all of a sudden the top 0.1% that has all these assets, they hold the assets, and the bottom 90%, the vast majority aren't going to have assets. So they're going to have the money itself in their savings account or whatever. And now when they go and print a bunch of money to bail out banks or bail out a bad financial decision, the people that suffer are the bottom 90% because they had their money in savings. Inflation and creation of more of that makes it go down in value. Well, the people who are at the tippity top have assets, and those assets skyrocket in value with more money printed. So they gain wealth, while people who don't have assets lose wealth. And that's not possible with a system like Bitcoin, where you can see it's even moving in the right direction here, where you can see whales whales are what's 1,000 Bitcoin or more. They've been declining since basically the beginning of Bitcoin. Publicly held, so exchanges, ETFs, and public companies. I mean, with exchanges and ETFs, those can have multiple retail investors in there. It's harder to kind of quantify who has what in those, but they have a lot of Bitcoin, but it's kind of moving up. And then retail has been moving up as well. Holders of less than 10 Bitcoin has been on the rise. So it's this opposite effect where obviously if you have a scarce asset, then the people at the top, you can't just create more of it. So if you sell it, if you use it to buy something, then the whoever gets it might be holding it, or a retailer goes and buys Bitcoin. So you have this asset where you can't make more Bitcoin. So you can't hold Bitcoin and then create more, or hold an asset and create more Bitcoin to make it worth more. It just doesn't happen. So whales, everyone, it's just kind of a more equal playing field for everyone involved. So Bitcoin, obviously a very controversial asset, still very hyped or hated. So, take it however you will. I think breaking away from 4-year cycle is what's going to happen, and how we get away from this is this year being a positive year for Bitcoin. So that'll invalidate all the people kind of saying, bear market and the halving cycles and all this stuff, invalidate all them talking, and then just kind of go towards this slow grind up in appreciation of price as Bitcoin continues to get adopted across the globe. But for a price target, like I said, 70 to 80K if we don't get a Bitcoin ETF this year, and if we don't get the SEC going after altcoin and scam coins. If we do get a Bitcoin ETF and the SEC, even if the SEC doesn't do anything, but we get a Bitcoin ETF, I think 100,000 is easy, and then 100 to 150,000, it's a pretty big range. But if we get that Bitcoin ETF, I think that's super easy to see Bitcoin go well into the six figures. So let me know what you guys think of Bitcoin, if the price is going to the six figures, or if you think we're heading back towards 10K. But that's going to do it for this video. As always, I'm going to smash that like button and subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. See you guys in my next